Hey there guys, one of the main things you'll hear again and again is the term animal enrichment. And if you've ever been wondering what exactly that is, or what it entails, or more importantly, why you should be doing that, I'm going to go ahead and cover all of that in this video, and that's going to be coming up right after this. Hey there guys, this is Jack over at High Redbird, where I am tirelessly working to make the keeping of exotic pets and animals more exciting, more affordable, and ultimately more enjoyable. Now in this video I wanted to go ahead and cover the topic of enrichment because it is a subject that comes up again and again, and it really is integral to the keeping of pretty much any animal that could be in your care. So the very first question we have to ask ourselves is, what is enrichment? It gets talked about quite a bit. Enrichment is going to be pretty much anything that encourages a natural response from your animals. The goal of keeping animals in captivity and providing them enrichment is to help stimulate those behaviors and actions that they would be doing out in the wild. Obviously in the wild they're going to have a whole lot more room, they're going to have a whole lot more options. When we keep them in captivity, we don't give them as many things that they can do compared to when they are outside. So we want to make sure that we supplement their activities and their behaviors with a variety of things that they can interact with. So the next question then is, what all does enrichment entail? And it's going to be a couple different things. One of the main things that people think of when they think of enrichment is going to be toys. Obviously, toys are very exciting. Now, toys are going to be a crucial part of enrichment, but they are not the only part of enrichment. In fact, a lot of people will get toys and they'll think, here, I put 5, 6, 7 toys in the enclosure with my animal, and I've provided them everything they need, and that's not really the case. Other forms of enrichment are going to be things like training, daily training with your animal. So obviously this can include things like birds, but things like cats, dogs, reptiles benefit a lot from training in that form of enrichment. Things that you can provide them that change up their day. So by giving your animals a little bit of visual or audio enrichment, so as you can see, these parakeets that I have right behind me, they are actually out on my balcony, so they get exposure to birds that are going to be flying by them. They get wind, they get a little bit of temperature change. Now, obviously, I'm going to provide them heaters if it's getting excessively cold, or fans and air circulation if it's getting excessively hot. But, again, remember, animals encounter all of these things in the wild. So by giving them things that are a little bit different, natural sunlight, exposure to things like that, any sort of visual or audio stimulation is going to get them thinking about their environment and what's going on. Another thing to consider in terms of enrichment is your schedule. A schedule and a routine is going to be a crucial part of enrichment. Animals can get really bogged down into a schedule, especially if you have a particular schedule for them. So one way you can stimulate them is just by changing things up with their schedule. So for these guys, typically they get a seed and a pellet mix in the evening. They get that overnight, and then they get a fresh chopped mix of mixed greens, mixed vegetables, first thing in the morning. I do that so that I can pull it at the end of the day, clean out that bowl, don't have to worry about bugs or anything like that. But if it's one of my days off and I go ahead and give them produce in the afternoon, they act like it's the weirdest thing in the world because they're used to getting it first thing in the morning. So just by changing up your schedule, you can provide your animals a little bit more intellectual stimulation. Food is going to be one of the biggest ways that you can enrich your animals because, obviously, no matter what animals you have in captivity, you're going to have to feed them. There's a couple of different ways you can do that. Again, that schedule issue, that's one way that you can change up what kind of food they're getting, what times they're getting that food. You can change up the presentation of their food. So with birds like these, say I wanted to give them something like a finely minced watermelon. I mean, these are pretty small birds. Most of what I give them is going to be finely chopped anyways. I can stimulate them by giving them a whole wedge of watermelon instead. So just by changing up the presentation of those food items, again, I'm stimulating these animals, giving them a little bit of mental stimulation. They're interacting with their environment. So there's a couple considerations we want to make when it comes to enrichment. And above all, the biggest consideration you want to make whenever enriching one of your animals is safety. You want to make sure that what you are giving them is safe. I am going to point out that enrichment by its nature is almost always going to carry some manner of risk. Obviously, giving your animal something new, giving them something that they can interact with, obviously that has the potential to go wrong in just about every situation. So what it's important for you to do is to assess that item, make sure that you have eliminated all of the most basic ways that that item could be dangerous. You want to make sure you're using safe items. You want to make sure that they are being presented in a way that is safe for your animals. You want to make sure that you take into consideration the intelligence of the animal being enriched. That's going to actually be a big part of not only how you're enriching your animals, but how often they need to be enriched. Smarter animals like parrots tend to need enrichment a little bit more. Things like dogs benefit from enrichment on a near regular basis. Again, that can be part of training. I know a lot of dogs that are really, really happy by getting daily training sessions, and that provides that mental stimulation as well. And you want to make sure that you're paying attention to your animal's interest in the enrichment. So the interest in the enrichment and the safety of the enrichment kind of go hand in hand, and the way you address that is by observing your animal. It's actually just as easy as that, and honestly for me, one of the most exciting parts of enrichment is getting to see an animal express natural behaviors, getting to see it interact with brand new things. So, by observing your animal as they are interacting with the enrichment, you can, one, ensure that it is safe, and every animal is going to be completely different. So even if there are some items that are not safe for that species, they might be safe for your individual animal, and vice versa. There are some items that are safe for that species, or generally considered to be safe for that species, and your animal might be a little bit more destructive, and maybe it's not going to be a safe item for your animal to get. Now, as you're observing that animal, you also want to make sure that they're interested in the item. Obviously, if there is no interest at all, you're probably not providing that much mental stimulation to your animal. But you also want to make sure that you're not overstimulating your animal. Again, that brings us back to the problem of people who will provide an abundance of toys, and essentially there'll be more room in an enclosure for toys than there is for the animal itself. By giving just a couple of items and rotating through them, you can see how your animal interacts with a certain item. Now, one thing you do want to avoid is picking a favorite item. Now, obviously, all animals have things that they really, really enjoy. Dogs you might have a dog that really likes tennis balls. You don't want to give them tennis balls all the time, because even though they really like them, the goal of this is to provide variety, and a little bit of difference in what's going on really helps with mental stimulation. Right now is probably the best time to demonstrate that, as so many people are in quarantine, and arguably this is probably one of the best times to be in quarantine, because if you think about it, we have phones, we have internet, we have access to so many television shows and movies, and even in spite of all of that, people are still getting bored, they're getting restless, because it's all the exact same thing, and they're starting to feel as if they don't have a choice in that. When the option is, do you want to watch this show or that show, it's still just watching one show, it's still interacting with one single item in one particular way. You want to apply the same thing to our animals. We want to make sure we give them a variety, and even though exercise is probably not something that a lot of people list very high as one of their favorite activities to do, right now there are a lot of people that are very, very excited to just get out of the house and go for a walk. So even if something is not a favored item, providing it still provides a great deal of mental stimulation. And that's why you should always rotate through a variety of different things. Now, the final question we have to ask ourselves is what animals can benefit from enrichment? And in all fairness, the answer is all of them. I have not yet met an animal that doesn't benefit from enrichment. Of course, enrichment does need to be geared for the individual species you are working with. Obviously, things like the parakeets behind me would probably not enjoy the giant 2x4s on a metal chain that I would provide something like a macaw. So you want to make sure that you're providing for them, but like I said before, providing them food in a variety of different ways is going to mentally stimulate them. You can enrich things like your dogs, your cats. You can enrich things like lizards, turtles. I've actually known people that have enriched and trained their fish in a fish tank. So there really are a wide variety of animals that you can go ahead and enrich. So my question for you guys is, what animals do you have and how are you enriching them? I think it's important for us to cover that because a lot of people need to realize that other people have the same animals as them and they're having to face the same issues and work through them. So if we can work through them together, that sounds like that would be a great way to move forward. So if you guys have an animal that you are working on enriching, go ahead and leave that in the comment section down below so that other people can see and maybe even get some ideas on ways that they can enrich their animals. If you like this video, you want to go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, provide a ton of interesting animal care related content every single week. I do want to thank you guys for joining me today on this topic because enrichment is so critically important to the care of wild animals. So I do want to thank you guys once again for watching this video, but in the meantime, I've got some cages to clean, so I'll see you guys later. Bye.